Hello, welcome to my channel. This is the second video I'm doing on creating your own, do-it-yourself, make your own water filtration systems, whether it's portable water filtration or whole house water filter. There are some things that I thought I should cover. This is like an introduction to it for you. So they have the cloth filter, and it says it was developed for main use in Bangladesh. The cloth filter is simple and cost effective, and you can pause this and read it. And it also says see cheesecloth for drinking water. So it says water collected in this way has greatly reduced pathogen count. You notice that I'm skimming through it because I have a lot of tabs open. And then it shows a picture of someone where one lady is washing the utensils and the vegetables, and the other woman is putting a steri filter onto a water collecting pot to filter her water. And it says that here, like I said, you can see I'm skimming through it. You can pause it and read it. She has the cloth folded to make 4 or 8 layers, and the folded cloth is pasted over a wide mouth container and used to collect surface water because you want to get the water at the top with less contaminants. And so it says it's usually sufficient to rinse the cloth and dry it in the sun for a couple of hours. And so So it says it may be advisable to use cheap disinfectant to decontaminate the material, but it says the preferred cloth is used cotton sari cloth. And then they have other types. So, and it talks about as the repeated washing reduces the space between the fibers and the effectiveness and things like that, so that you can read about it. And I don't want to get into technical terms, but it says it has been demonstrated to greatly reduce cholera infections in poor villages where disinfectants and fuel for boiling are difficult to get. So I thought that was really interesting. So you can, like I said, you can pause this and read it. So, and it says this should be small enough to remove all zooplankton, most phytoplankton, and thus a large proportion of cholera in the water, 99% according to laboratory studies. So it also says a nylon net with a larger mesh size was found to be almost equally effective. So that's interesting as well. So, and then you go to wikihow.com and how to make a water filter. And WikiHow has an interesting way of making a water filter. So I thought I would share that with you as well. And I'm not going to read all of that, but I'll scroll through it and talk about it. And you can pause it and read it if you like. Let me get rid of a couple of these ads. There's so many. And it shows you a list of ingredients, and it talks about getting sand, and it says not to use sand that has dyes in it. And it says it's better to get 2 different sizes of sand, as well as gravel, 2 different sizes of gravel. And it talks about the activated charcoal needs to be about pea size, and you might have to break it up. And it doesn't mention that you should rinse the activated charcoal, and some people prefer that you not only rinse it, but you soak it as well. So that, because it'll make it's kind of dirty, I guess. So it's got a craft knife, a hammer, and a nail, and a coffee filter, and a cup or a mug, and it's got the water bottle. So let's see what it says. And it gives you a list of supplies, and then it says to cut that. And it says if you're not an adult, you should have an adult do that for you because that's dangerous. And then it also talks about having a string, maybe a shoestring or something, through a couple of holes if you need to poke holes in it, so that you can hang it if you have to, if you can't have a way to set it on something that's the right size to hold it steady. And then it talks about using a hammer and a nail to punch a hole in the cap to make the water filter slow, so that it comes out slowly. And it talks about putting the coffee filter over the bottle and then twisting the cap on it to help hold the activated charcoal inside. And then it says to fill it, after you turn it upside down and get it steady, the bottom third of the bottle with activated charcoal. And it talks about breaking it up. It talks about the sand and not having dyes in it, and using a finer grain sand and a coarser grain sand, which is a larger grain sand, and that the smaller grain sand should go first, and the bigger, larger grain sand should go above that. Oh, and there comes another ad. And then it talks about the gravel and using the smaller gravel at the bottom and the larger gravel at the top. So, and using the water filter, and it talks about how you might have to run the water through there 2 or 3 or 4 times to make sure the water comes out clear. And then after all that, you're still going to need to boil the water because some of the contaminants aren't going to die and not going to be gone unless you boil the water, like maybe E. coli, or what was another one it said it's lower down, I can't remember what it was. Hepatitis, I think, was one of them. So it says to pour it till it's clear and then boil it. And if you're in a higher elevation, you need to boil it for 3 minutes. But if you're not, if you're in a lower elevation, then you only need to boil it for 1 minute. And then you have to let it cool, and then you store it in an airtight container. And it says it's better not to store it in a glass container. So, and it talks about if you don't have a coffee filter, to use something white that doesn't have dyes like cotton fabric or paper towel. But, which I thought was interesting. And then it talks about how you can use fruit peels, to absorb bacteria and as a filter. Which some of the websites say it's better to do things to the peels and something about alcohol, but you can look that up if you want. This one doesn't mention it. And then it talks about sapwood, such as pine, contains xylem, which can absorb and filter out dirt and bacteria. It can remove up to 99.9% of bacteria from water, but will not remove viruses such as hepatitis, and rotavirus. It says you'll need to boil the water and filter it to make it safe, after filtering it, to make it safe to drink. And it says that you cut a 4-inch long piece from a pine tree branch, peel off the bark, and make sure that it can fit into the neck of a bottle. If it's too wide, you need to shave it down using sandpaper or a pocket knife. So you can put the stick in the bottle and use that stick to filter the water. And it says not to let it dry out, because if it dries out, it won't be as effective. Isn't that interesting? That is so interesting. I wonder if you need to soak it in water before you use the thing, because it says it's not as effective if it's dry. But, oh, I love that. That's fascinating, isn't it? And then they have some questions and answers, so you can look this up if you like, because it's on WikiHow. You can see that at the very top in the address bar. So, and then WikiHow also has how to get rid of E. coli from water. And I had another website, but it had so many ads. And the other website talked about some kind of tablets, iodine tablets or something like that. But it said it's not good for some people with thyroid problems, or that are pregnant, or have hypertension, or can't deal with the tablets. So, and how would you know that unless you'd actually tried it, right? So then it talks about boiling water and how long to boil water, or using bleach. So it talks about sanitizing your water by boiling it for 1 minute or 3 minutes, and how you don't want it to boil over, and you want to use a good enough pan and a large enough pan. And some places you do it for 1 minute, and some places you do it for 3 minutes. And then it talks, and at another place it talks about adding, and it talks about not using a glass container and making sure it's a tightly sealed container. And then it talks about using 16 drops of bleach, but you have to make sure it's the right kind of bleach, and it doesn't have other added chemicals, and it's 16 drops of bleach for a gallon of contaminated water. It sounds disgusting to me. It sounds like way too much bleach. And I wonder how many drops is in a teaspoon. So So then you pour it in there and you stir it for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you have to let it sit undisturbed for at least 30 minutes. And it will smell slightly bleachy afterwards. And that just sounds disgusting to me, to be drinking bleachy water. And it says that it should contain between 5.25 to 6% of the active ingredient sodium hypochlorite. So I don't know, that just sounds disgusting. And then it also talks about distilling water, which you have to have a cup, and it doesn't have a picture of the cup, and the cup has to be upright to be able to collect the water as it goes into steam. And then it talks about this sugar thing, paper strips soaked in sugar to kill E. coli. I've never heard of that. Would that actually work? It says it's something new that's come out that they're trying to do, and I don't know. It says it holds some promise. It works best for small amounts of water. You get strips of porous paper and coat them in sugar crystals. Then place the paper strips in the water until the sugar dissolves. And then you remove the strips, and then the water should be safe to drink. And it has a slightly altered taste. That sounds really strange to me, and I don't know if I would even trust that. And then it talks about determining if your water's polluted and looking at it for particles and how you really can't see E. coli and what E. coli does to you and how it makes you sick and things like that. And like I said, you can pause it and read it because I'm just skimming over it. I have a lot of tabs open. And then freedrinkingwater.com, water education, quality water filtration method. And this one was a really interesting site that I liked. It says different water filtration methods explained. Distillation, so distilling water, is probably the oldest method of water purification. Water is first heated to boiling. Then the water vapor rises to a condenser where cooling water lowers the temperature so the vapor is condensed, collected, and stored. Most contaminants behind the liquid phase vessel. However, there can sometimes be what is called carryovers found in the distilled water, organics such as herbicides and pesticides with boiling points lower than 100 degrees cannot be removed efficiently and can actually become concentrated in the product water. Another disadvantage of distillation is cost because it requires large amounts of energy and water is very slowly to produce clean water. So, and that talks more about that, and it has the list of advantages and disadvantages. And then it talks about the ion exchange, which are like the little beads and things like that. You'll see, hold on, I'll show you a picture. See how they have this right here? These are, and it shows the different beads and what it means with the ionic exchange. So, did I just lose the site I was on? No, I didn't. It's right just before that. So it says ion exchange process percolates water through bead-like spherical resin materials. Ionic exchange resins. Ions in the water are exchanged for other ions fixed to the beads. The two most common ion exchange methods are softening and deionization. Softening is using primarily as a pre-treatment method to reduce water hardness prior to reverse osmosis processing. And this is that one and these are called cation beads. Wait a minute. Where is it? I thought it was in that one. Have it somewhere. Nope, that ain't it. Oh, here it is right here. So, these are cation resin beads that you can buy. And you have to be careful because they swell up. But you can buy them. These are wet ones. I hate see, you can see pictures of it, so you can get the little dry ones. So you can buy these in bulk, but okay, now back where I was. Because I think it helps to be able to see what you're talking about instead of trying to picture it in your head or trying to figure it out if you don't know what it is or what it means. So I thought, well, I should show you a picture, but the pictures have changed since I pulled up the tab. Go figure, right? And now I can't, there it goes. It took me a minute. Okay, I have too many tabs open. So softening is used primarily as a pre-treatment method to reduce water hardness. And that's those beads because they swell up and you stack them and it helps to reduce the water hardness and get rid of things like calcium and things like that. Prior to reverse osmosis processing, the softener contains beads that exchange 2 sodium ions for every calcium or magnesium ion removed from the softened water. Di beads exchange either hydrogen ions for cation or hydroxyl ions for anions, and the anions are the, I hope I'm saying that right, are the other ones that I showed you that were in the filter that was attached to the sink faucet. So, and those are the, here I'll show you again. Those are like these. Some of these are not the zeolite, but some of the little balls and stuff like that are, you can see some of them are those beads. And back to the other one. So, and then it has some of this may be hard to understand. So, deionization beads exchange either hydrogen ions for cations or hydroxyl ions for anions. The cation exchange resins made of styrene, and I don't know what that word is, containing sulfonic acid groups will exchange a hydrogen ion for any cations they encounter. Similarly, the anion exchange resins made of styrene and containing quaternary ammonium groups will exchange hydroxyl ion for any anions. The hydrogen ion from the cation exchanger unites with the hydroxyl ion of the anion exchanger to form pure water. These resins may be packaged in separate bed exchangers with separate units for the cation and anion exchange beds. So you could layer filters in between them, or they may be packed in mixed bed exchangers containing a mixture of both types of resins. In either case, the resin must be regenerated once it has exchanged all its hydrogen and or hydroxyl ions for charged contaminants in the water. This regeneration reverses the purification process, replacing the contaminants bound to the Di resins with hydrogen and hydroxyl ions. Deionization can be an important component of a total water purification system when used in combination with other methods discussed in this primer, such as RO filtration and carbon absorption. Di systems effectively remove ions, but they do not effectively remove most organics and microorganisms. Microorganisms can attach to the resins, providing a culture media for rapid bacteria growth and subsequent pyrogen generation. The advantages and disadvantages of this technology are summarized below. So it gives you the, and there goes my computer just freezing up again. I've been trying to do this video all day and I'll either get interrupted or I was coughing or I had too many tabs open and it was freezing up or the phone was ringing. So there's the advantages and disadvantages. And this talks about carbon absorption is a widely used method of home water filter treatment because of its ability to improve water by removing disagreeable tastes and odors, including objectionable chlorine. Activated carbon effectively removes many chemicals and gases, and in some cases it can be effective against microorganisms. However, generally it will not affect total dissolved solids, hardness, or heavy metals, where the cation beads helps get rid of some of the solids and the hardness. And if you have layers of material, they have cut to fit material. If you saw my other video, you can buy different types of materials that are cut to fit and sponges and things like that you can layer in between that will also help get rid of some of the things. So that way you have a combination. Only a few carbon filter systems have been certified for the removal of lead, asbestos, cysts, and coliform. There are Two types of carbon filter systems, each with advantages and disadvantages. Granular activated carbon, a solid block carbon. These two methods can also work along with reverse osmosis system, which can be read about below. Activated carbon is created from a variety of carbon-based materials in a high-temperature process that creates a matrix of millions of microscopic pores and crevices. 1 pound of activated carbon provides anywhere from 60 to 150 acres of surface area. The pores trap microscopic particles and large organic molecules which have the activated surface areas cling to absorb small organic molecules. The ability of an activated carbon filter to remove certain microorganisms and certain organic chemicals, especially pesticides, and then it gives a list of things, and how long the filter's been in use and things like that. So it gives you more information on this. And like I said, I don't want to read all of this. I'm just skimming through it. But this is carbon also removes free chlorine and protects other purification media in the system that may be sensitive to an oxidant such as chlorine. So it talks about different things that you might need if you're going to create your own type of do-it-yourself water filtration. I think that you would want to have this types of information. And then this talks about micropores basic filtration and different materials and things like that. And that's why I showed you it says when fluid passes through the filter, particles larger than the spaces within the filter matrix are retained. So that's why I liked different things. I like seeing where they use like cotton cloth and cheesecloth material, or there's the sponge material like they use in fish tanks, and then they have the cut to fit material. And I like the fact that you can layer the materials. But the cheesecloth, I think it needs to be laid out to dry, so I don't think you'd want to put that in an actual filter, but you might can pour the water through that when you're doing it. So, and then it talks about advantages and disadvantages, and then it goes into reverse osmosis. And it says it's one of the most economical methods of removing 90 to 90% of all contaminants. So, and a lot of people boil their water still, even though they go through all these other things, they might still boil their water. Like my neighbors boil their water. They have tap water and they boil the water. So, and this talks about natural osmosis occurs when solutions with two different concentrations are separated by a semi-permeable membrane. So, I think that's interesting to know because they use a hydraulic pressure that's applied to a concentrated solution to counteract the osmosis. So they use a high pressure system into fabric membrane to try to collect and get, to purify the water. So I think it's really interesting to read about this and to understand this. And if you don't read about it and you don't understand it, I think that it makes it harder to understand what you're doing when you go to filter your own water. So, like I said, you can pause this and read this because it's very interesting. This talks about nuclear radiation such as radioactive plutonium and things like that. If somebody lives near a nuclear power plant, this is a key way to ensure the household is drinking the best water for their health through reverse osmosis. Wow, I didn't know that. That sounds disgusting as well, right? So, and then it talks about UV radiation. Ultraviolet radiation has been used for germicidal treatment of water so that you can use UV lights to sanitize water. So, maybe if you use reverse osmosis and you use a filter that you have at home that you can pour it through, and then maybe you can use the UV light. But it seems like overkill, but I don't know. But you can buy water test strips and you can ask somebody. But our local water often has, well, not often, but like one town will come up and say, oh, your water, you can't drink your water right now, and then it's on a boil where you can boil the water, and then one city, I don't know if it ever got to where we could drink it, but, and then it goes from one city to the other. And I don't know if it's because of flooding or why, but sometimes the water is just not drinkable, so everybody's buying bottled water. So, and this has reverse osmosis, nanofiltration, ultra filtration, microfiltration, and particle filtration. So this, I don't know, this has different information on the website, and I thought it was really interesting. So I thought I would share it with you. And then you can click on that to read the top 20 harmful water contaminants, because you want to know how to get rid of those contaminants, right? But I don't want to. And then ion exchange, and this gives you a definition and talks about it. And like I said, you can read this. So that this one seemed to have more simple terminology than some of the other websites. And it talks about the ions between a solid substance called a resin and like water. So it talks about that. The ions in the resin releases to the water. The process may result in water purification. So you can pause it and read all of that if you like. I thought that was interesting. And then it has the cation exchange resins versus anion exchange resins. And the cation resins are for like hard water and things like that. And it says that they exchange negative ions. And then, like I said, you can pause this and read this if you want to. I don't want to read all of it, but I did want to share it all with you. And I was trying to find the best websites I could find to find it so it was in simpler terminology. So, and then you can find these, and if sometimes they use different words other than the cation resin and the anion resin. So when you go to look for it, you're like, oh, I don't understand these words. Where am I going to find this? And how can I find these if I wanted to do this? So, and I think I like the sand and the gravel as well. You know, I don't have the sand and the gravel at home for mine, but I do like the idea of it. I do have I have the zeolite, and I have the charcoal carbon type little box that you get from the pet store. And I also have like 3 different types of materials that I could put in to layer it. And then I have PVC pipe, because I want to put it in PVC pipe. And then I want to put like screw-on lids, because I want to be able to, if I want to use it at the faucet, I can just hold it under the faucet and unscrew it, and I want to be able to take it with me so that I have it portable. And then I also want to be able to connect it to the whole house to have it filtering. And this one talks about ion exchange as well. So, and cation resins and things like that. So, because the cation resins are really, see there it talks about hardness removal. They're really good for getting rid of the hardness. And we have hard water, and we have calcium and things like that in our water that we want to be able to get rid of, because when we go to boil the water, we have all these pieces of calcium in there, and some of them are pretty big. And it grosses me out. I mean, I don't like it. So, and I don't really have anion resins except for what's in the little thing that you connect to the faucets. But I do have, like I said, the zeolite and the charcoal carbon stuff, the little that I got from the pet supply store. And then I have sponges, and then I have 2 different types of material that I can cut to fit to go into my filters. And I think I showed those in, I don't know if I showed both materials, but I think I showed it in the other video. I know I showed at least one of the materials that I had in the sponge material, because you can get some of it at the pet supply store. If you have a pet, if you've ever had fish and you're trying to know anything about the filtration system for the aquariums, then that also helps you. So, yeah, and that's the cation resin, so you can see that. It's like just little beads, and then they get wet, and they're different, and they swell up, so. And this shows anion resin, so. And I just think that's really interesting. But I should get some gravel and sand as well. And this is the anion. See, they come in the little balls, and those are, so you could see that as well. And I love these right here. I don't know if you've ever seen these shower heads for sale, but you can buy these shower heads and these little beads. Well, that's my phone ringing. If you think it's your phone ringing, it's not, it's mine. But these little beads that go through this shower head, if you attach it, they make the water pressure. If you don't have a good water pressure, it helps you to have a stronger water pressure comes out of the shower head than it would in your other normal shower head with the little beads in there, because the water goes through that. And then you can have, if you want stronger water pressure in your shower, which I have done, because when our shower heads get clogged, everything gets clogged, and so I have done that so that I would have more water pressure. So, and my husband's redone the pipes and stuff, even though we have all the things to build, and he knows how to do plumbing and things like that, so we have everything he needs to build a whole house water filtration system to go under there to help filter out the hard water. He just hasn't felt like doing it, I guess. And this shows cheesecloth and the filter and the cotton that some people use. So you can find that some people use different kind of, so this is nylon mesh liquid filter bags. So you can see, and like I said, you can, and my other one, you can get those tea bag. It's material for making your own tea bags, where you can pull the little string and you can put the types of things that you want to filter your water in there, probably, and just set that in something and run it. Or you can use those, they've got these little metal coffee filters that you put over the coffee pot, and then you can probably layer it in there, and that will help boil the water some. But I think you would need to boil the water more, because I think it would need to come to a harder boil, so you might want to boil it, and for a longer time. So I don't know how well that would work, but it might work well just to have that in the coffee filter. And then you can put a paper filter in there as well, and then you can run it through the coffee pot, and from the coffee pot you might pour it in a pan and boil it some more. And I love the way this, like this right here, you can go on to Amazon and it tells you what they have in the filters. Some of them, they don't show you, what's in their filters. And so, because they don't want you to know, because if you know how they're making their filters, then you can go home and create your own filters, right? And I think in some countries it's more common for them to do that. So like I love this one because it shows the images, and then you can click on the picture and it tells you what's there. So it'll tell you the activated carbon or charcoal. And then it'll tell you the ion exchange resin, which looks like cation resin to me. And then it talks about the far infrared ceramic balls, which may be the anion beads. And then it talks about the silica sand and the mineral stones. So, and then it has material in between the different layers. And then it has something up here as well. And so I think that's interesting. And then there's one website that I showed you in the other video where they actually put these things, they have like these little rock looking things that are black and white that goes in the bottom to help filter, and it's good for like 2 years. And I thought that was excellent, but I don't know for sure because, like I said, I'm not a professional. I'm just someone that has been doing research on this. And I wanted to share my research with you. And somebody else would probably have, there's always people that have a lot more knowledge than I do. And I would be interested in hearing about your knowledge if you want to leave comments and share your knowledge with me. So this one talks about the woven fabric. This is zeolite. It says medical stone. I don't know what that is. Calcium sulfite. And it talks about the natural coconut shell activated carbon. And so I love the way you can, some of these you can actually look and see what they've done. And I have some of these at home. So I think they're still in the box and I haven't even opened them. But they're so inexpensive. But you go online and look at them and they'll tell you exactly what's in them. So I think that's, and this one has the zeolite and the coconut shell activated carbon. So I think that's interesting because if you're going to build your own filters, but I also think that it's important to talk to someone maybe from the water plant that works there or the health department or someone like that, and to have the water strips and so that you can check your water and so you can send it in and have it checked as well, and to get, you know, someone who's a professional and has far more knowledge than I do, to get information from them and to find out more about it. But I wish, and I've heard about people taking these filters apart to see what's in them, but I never have. Because I think they're made differently, but I wish they would share more about, you know, what's in there. But, and some of them talk about having a water filter, not a water filter, a coffee filter in something and then layering it stuff inside of the coffee filter, but I don't think that would last very long. And I've read about people being able to take their filters apart and refill them themselves, and they do that in some countries, but I can't remember which countries, but that way they can do it themselves. And I thought, well, you know, PVC is something that would be easy to do, and you could, you know, have a smaller little area where you can screw the little caps on, and you could put it together somehow, but I have it, we just haven't done it. And I wanted to put it in the video, but I like having my husband cut the pipes for me and help me do it. He just has never felt like doing it because he works a lot of hours and he works around the house a lot. And I don't know, he just hasn't felt like doing it. So anyway, I hope you watched my other video and I hope you watched both videos. And I hope you found this interesting. I really found it interesting the way they layer the cotton cloth in layers and then they filter the water out in other countries. I thought, wow, that's fascinating, right? Anyway, please feel free to leave comments, and thank you so much for tuning in, and let me know if this helped you or if you learned anything. And thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Bye-bye.